Greetings, fellow pirates. Captain Bob here, and welcome to my first attempt at a video which I hope to upload to YouTube. And what inspired me for this build was John Lennon's 325 that he used on the second show of the Ed Sullivan show, and I saw it last year in color, and I realized, wow, after he had done the repaint between the first and second appearance on the Ed Sullivan show with the jet black and the gold pickguard and nut cover, I thought that would make a really impressive guitar. The other interesting thing, the more challenging that this guitar has offered me, is it's a semi-hollow body. It's all milled out all around here and across here, and it has a special little cutout here which I thought was kind of interesting and challenging. That worked out well, and it has a back plate which goes on at the end, and the finish turned out pretty good. There's a lot of little bobos, but otherwise not bad. It's all Canadian maple, the whole thing, and it's very, very, very good wood to work with. It retains its shape, and the necks don't tend to twist or bend or anything, so I thought that was is the best way to go. These pickups I just got from China originally, just so I could make the cutouts and have them fit, and I didn't think they would sound any good, but they actually sound not too bad, so I'm keeping them for now. I might have some wound down in the States. Their company, Genesis, they do them to the original specs. These are supposed to be to the original specs. Anyway, they sound all right. And this is all the modification that John had made for the tone controls and volume and pickups. Okay, so without further ado there, we're going to the video. It's fairly long, about 2 hours. But I had to cover each step as little as possible to get it all in, and I don't include any of the paint job, just up to where I put the primer on, because it's just getting too long. The paint jobs, there are many online to see the technique. I have to admit I made a big mistake when I was laying out the dots for the fret markers. I was interrupted by my neighbor in the back, and as I was punching out the holes here to put the dots in, I only had 3 dots instead of 4 dots before the double dot. And I actually even put the dots in, and then realized, so I had to take off the whole fretboard and make a new fretboard and redo it. So I included that mistake and how I got the fretboard off and redid it. Okay, so let's dive in. So today I decided to build a Rickenbacker John Lennon 325 V59. Got the full scale drawing, which I'm transferring onto here. First of all, we're going to do the neck, so I'm going to cut this out roughly, oversize, and then we're going to match up for the body. So I'll go ahead and do that. So what I've done here is I have the outline and I've established a center line. This center line is very important to do right away because this will be used later to align with the exact center of the body once I go to fit the two together in order to determine exactly how this is going to mount into the body. The center line has to follow. Okay, so I've glued my two pieces together and now I'm cutting out the block. It's all plain nice and flat. So now just cutting it oversized a little bit so that later we can pass the toupee. Okay, so now I'm cutting the neck to its thickness. So I've done rough cutout of the neck at the full thickness. That's going to be cut down to the neck thickness afterwards. I made a little template, so I'm going to straighten my edges here now with the Mr. Toupee. Body is cut out roughly. That will be finished with the router afterwards and all the cutouts in the back. So now I'm just going to straighten this, take this off, and this will be also used for the template to make the fretboard. And then I have to cut out a notch down here and notch out the back of that so that fits in and glued. So we shall continue with that. What we have here now is I have cut out the block completely roughly. You can see the shape. Got our center line. This is out. Now this is going to be left flat until after the fretboard is glued, or the truss rod is put in. That's in, and do all the frets first while you have a flat surface, because when you're putting the frets in, if you've rounded this, it just rocks back and forth and you have a bitch of a time getting the frets on. So that's the last thing, is once this is not the fretboard, but it's the template. Once this is glued on, now I've slotted out this here, which is going to fit. It's going to fit into the body once I mill this flat, which I'm doing next. Make this cutout. Actually, it goes this way, and then this will fit. This will fit into the body, leaving the top about 3/8 of an inch at the top. So, and then this will be glued. Once I mill out all of this material, this will fit in and it'll be glued in place. Or I might even just screw it, I'm not sure, because I always like to have an adjustment for the neck. See if it doesn't line up perfectly. Anyway, we'll see when we get there. But right now, I'm going to mill this flat. So I'm going to clamp this down so that it can't move. Clamp it there. Then I've made this little jig over here. And then my router, I'm just going to freewheel it and cut it out and just follow this line as best I can. I've got it set so that I can't dig into this. Actually, what I might do, I think I'll make the angle piece there and have the roller follow it all the way. That's what I'm going to do next. So I've marked out where the neck is going to fit in. So now I'm going to use a Forstner bit and drill holes down to 3/8 of an inch from the top, and I'm going to fit my neck, and then after I'll router it square and flat. So we'll do that now. Okay, so now you can see I'm drilling it out with the Forstner down to 3/8, and then we'll be ready. See, I've made a template that the roller is going to ride on. I'm only going down about 1/2 inch the first shot, then I'll go down to 1 inch and then down to the bottom. Here, let me get this out of the way. To watch all that. Now that the neck is all shaped pretty much, I just have to do the finishing for the headstock, and I use Mr. Belt Sander. change sides and do here and underneath, and then it's going to be putting the truss rod in and gluing on the fretboard, and then we can start shaping. The headstock is roughly to shape. It just needs finishing, and this is where the nut is going to go, and I've chosen some maple for my fretboard. Got the lines kind of going the way I want them, and it's a little over 1/4 of an inch thick because I want to end up at about 7/8. Once I round this, I want to end up at 7/8 at this end, or excuse me, 13/16 at this end and 7/8 at this end. I'm keeping it flat until I've got all my frets on. So I marked this off here, and then I have to very carefully cut that, and then once I've got that cut to shape, truss rod, I'm going to mill out. I got my center line. Here's the hex head adjustment. So I'm going to router this out. This comes up just to the end underneath the nut. And this will be milled out a little bit here. And then set that in, and then we glue the shit out of that. Good. As you can see, we got the taper, almost nothing at this end, and I got to take out this. I just do it on the table saw, very carefully, over a little bit oversized, and then once it's glued on, everything will be sanded down straight and clean. Oh, one thing I forgot to record was I've milled out the top here, and this is milled flat, and this line, this is milled flat across here to match this, and this is milled out, of course, and I had to put a couple of little shims in here because I was just a little off on my center line. My center line was just a hair off, so I had to mill this underneath just a hair so that I could bring it over. And now when this is flush in and it's tight enough, I'm going to be using PL glue, which you can have gaps up to like 1/8 of an inch and it still adheres and is solid as a rock. So that's that section. Now I'm going to mill out for the truss rod. Okay, now, so I've made my first pass with the router. I just went down about 3/16, and that's not the full depth, but you should always do it in 2 stages. Makes cutting easier and it doesn't burn as much. Blades last longer. And just before I do that, I have to notch out at the end. It's wider. It's in 2 stages, a little wider there and then a little wider there, and this is the same width. So I have to chisel out a slot a little wider than the rod itself, so that it'll fit in, and that'll keep it from sliding. Not that it would anyway, but so I'm using just a chisel. Just making that a little wider. And I just thought of something. Underneath here I don't have anything supporting this, so when I'm hammering my chisel it's just bouncing. So I'm going to support that and then I'll continue. I've taken this piece here which fits nicely underneath, so now I'm not going to get any bounce. Much better. This stock out of the way. Okay, we'll just have a quick check here. Almost. It looks not too bad here. Just a little more at the end. He's almost ready. Okay, so I'll do that and then move on. So now I'm ready to make my second pass. So we have to adjust our blade down a bit. And we want this to be the final pass. So we're going to set this at exactly the depth of the rod, and that looks good if I can get it to lock without moving. It moved, so I have to go a little more like this. That should be perfect. Lock that in place. Okay, so that should be. Now that should be the right depth, but I'm probably going to have to open this up a little bit more. Oh, I got a little bit to take out at this end. Okay, our depth is going to be good. It's just that I've still got a little more here, and I've got to make that a little deeper. Fit. And what I've done is I started to elongate, cut here. That's when the truss rod fits in there. Just taper it up. Okay, so I've the rod is fitting good. It's right in the right place. Now I reamed it out this way and from side to side where the Allen key fits in, so that you can get a good quarter turn. So that's why I milled out on this edge and this edge, because this is all covered with the cover plate. So that should be fine, nice and easy to enter. Good quarter turn. We're all set for gluing it on. Well, alrighty then. We're ready for the next step. So what I do now, everything is ready to go. So in goes Mr. Oh, before we do that, when you're putting in the truss rod, before I was fooling around there to make sure that this fit and everything. But I had left the truss rod engaged a little bit, so it was curved. And then I went to put it in, and I said, oh, why doesn't it fit right? So make sure before you put your truss rod in, it's in the neutral position. Don't have it cranked. Have it in the neutral position so that it's nice and straight. I don't know if you can see that. Then he goes in. Make absolutely sure that it's flush all the way. And what I do is I score up the board a little bit. The same thing with the fretboard. Score it up. I don't know if it makes much difference, but the glue will tend to go into the little troughs and soak in a little deeper. Some people cover this with tape. I don't see what any possible good that does or doesn't, or any reason why not. But just have a good layer of glue, and then just make sure after I score it, make sure no little ridges sticking up. So, I've got all of my clamps more or less adjusted so that you haven't got one all the way up here and you're doing this when you want to get everything done as quickly as possible. Make sure you get the right side of the board up of your fretboard and it's oriented properly. That, so I gotta remove this surface, then I'll put this on and clamp. So away we go. Now they say do both sides. I don't really see what advantage that is, but get a little clean up rags. And I don't push it right into the, in fact I got a little too much on here. And I don't push the glue like into the truss rod. Yeah, I got way too much on there. Way too much, Robbie. Always handy to have your rags around. Okay, we'll just get this side covered a bit. Okay. Make sure the truss rod is seated all the way that way, because that's where it pushes when you make an adjustment. And away we go. Now I'm just going to set one in the center here. Whoops, forgot my board. Get one just roughly in place, and of course I can't see where my, so we're going to go like this. This is where the nut is going to sit, so we'll just do it like that. Okay, so now we do our final positioning. Exactly there. Exactly there. Just snug that up a little bit because it's going to wiggle around. Here, let's do a little cleanup. Before we get glue all over the place. Is good. This guy. Wants to go there. He's right on, he's right on. He is right on. I've got excess sticking out because of course that's all going to be sanded. And then just gently triple check, quadruple check. No, I want him to go back just a hair more. There. good. He's good. And you don't have to torque it right down. Just enough so you've got a good even pressure. And then I'm going to come over on this side with one. And we're going to go on this side. With one. You can stay in the center. Okay, you don't have to go crazy. This guy a little more forward here. Okay, looks like where to go. He's perfect, but a little overhang. Let's do a little clean up here. Okay, so we are absolutely 100% go. Now we're going to take a break for lunch. Okay. Now we've got to do our edges of the fretboard. So as you can see, after gluing it, we've got all, it was only cut out roughly by the bandsaw. So we're going to do each side. I've already started this side. But you just clamp on a metal surface and make sure that at both ends are exactly flush. And you can see it goes in and out and in and out. So that has to be sanded perfectly straight. So we put him in there. Put on our mask. We can find the strap. Now it shouldn't take much because there's there's not much off of there. And that looks nice. No, we still have a little more build up there. Okay, I'll do that and then flip it over. Now I got my neck all ready. All the edges are nice and straight. And I just put the nut on, glued it on there temporarily, because now I have to set up for my bridge. And I put this in and it was a little too low across the bridge, so I had to just mill this down a little bit so that I can get a little more down angle on the neck, which will raise the height of the strings up into the range of the bridge adjustments. So I've done that. So now it's all the way down. So I take a straight edge, and I'm just assuming roughly the height of the fret. And I'm just about to the notch on the bridge for the string. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to mill this out for the base plate. I'm going to take it down about an 1/8, 3/16, and then that'll give me more adjustment. When I put on the bridge, it'll give me more adjustment because I've got these long screws on springs, so I can bring that way up, but I don't want to, so I'm just going to go down that amount. I've marked my 12th fret, so what I'm going to do is once this is installed, I'm going to run a string and I'm going to simulate a fret being here, and I'm going to check my intonation between the nut and the 12th fret, make sure that it's right on. I have all of the fret spacing, distance from the nut in millimeters, and then fret to fret. So with this I can use as a guide to place all my frets, my fretskis. As we can see, my neck's all ready. Headstock, I drilled out the holes for the tuning pegs, and now I'm marking off the scale. I got the scale off of several sites to verify that they all agree with each other. I'm doing it in millimeters, so it just shows you when you measure from the fret, from the nut to the first fret is 32.8 millimeters. Then from the nut to the second fret is 63.8. So you just continue on down the line, and what I do is I set this, I call it an anglometer. You set this, because this is tapered, you have to offset this slightly. So you measure up your first reading up on this side of the neck, and you measure up also the same distance up this side, and then you set your angle meter to compensate for the taper. So that way this is square to the center line, is basically what that means. And then Once I measure up, I draw a line, and then you take a knife and very precisely hold that good and firm, and then just pass the knife blade and score it as deep as you can. This will facilitate cutting, sawing of the frets, slots. Okay, so I'm going to continue all the way up. I'm on a 23-inch scale. 585 millimeters is my scale. The actual fretboard itself is 17, I believe, and 17 and a half. So we shall continue with that. So I've cut out all my frets down about 2 millimeters, and of course that's flat, and it's flat on the bottom. Very important, flat on the bottom, because when you go to, after you put the radius on the fretboard, when you go to put those frets in, you don't want it rocking back and forth. So you keep flat bottom and do your final shaping afterwards. So all my frets are cut out, and this is my high-tech jig, and I got my 9.5 inch radius, number 80 paper, and you can see I've got very little, just a portion of got everything fairly solid. I got shims on the side so I don't get any movement. I got it blocked at the end so it doesn't slide back and forth too much. I got to add a little more there. I got a little movement. But this is makes a good guide. Keeps everything central. And that's about it. Got my holes cut out. I already did a check with the body. I installed Mr. Bigsby and put the bridge in, and I checked all my intonation, and my scale length is 23 inches or 585 millimeters, and I'm spot on for the, and I still have the adjustment for the intonation here if necessary, and the height adjustment on these two. So we're looking good so far. Well, I'll see you in a couple of hours after sanding. Got a nice radius sanded on there just with 80 grit. I'm going to leave it like that for now. I started all my slots. They'll have to have a little more cutting out before I put on the frets. I've got a pretty good fit on the body. Struggles. Pretty good fit. And I've got a nice clearance for the bridge. And the pickups will probably have to be recessed a little bit. I'm waiting for them. I'm not sure of the exact dimensions of the ones I'm getting. But if I have to, I'll mill down a little bit. Now, I've cut. This was just a rough cut that I did on the bandsaw. And now I did it again, and I'm going to make my template. But now I'm going to take the orbital sander and just make this as perfect as I can get it. Just a tad smaller than the body as it stands. There. So I have to bring it down probably about 1/8 of an inch all the way around, maybe a little more in some spots. But anyway, whatever this says, that's going to be the final shape after routing. So, we'll continue. I'm going to do a quickie here just to show how 80 grit. Just like a well-built woman. Oh, I've got my template to shape. It looks good. And I put them on. And I scribed a line all the way around to make sure that I have meat everywhere. The only place I don't is a tiny spot here. But this is going to be milled out afterwards, according to the drawing for the Bigsby. Goes in here, but it goes in on an angle. This is going to be filed out roughly like this, down here, and then it comes up on some sort of an angle like this, and then back down, and Mr. Bigsby is going to sit at about a 5-degree angle. So we're looking good. There's my line all the way around. I've got meat everywhere. I don't mill here. So looks like it's milling time. One final note here. I use this double-sided tape to hold the template onto the body, but just use a few spots because and then after I'm going to put a couple of finishing nails in there just to lock it solid, because it'll still wiggle a little bit with this tape. So if you lock in at least 2 spots where it's not going to show, obviously, then you're good to go. The first time I did this, I put strips all the way up and down there and put it on, and it took me about a half an hour and 2 crowbars to get it off. So just use this sparingly. Okay, so we're going to put that on. Well, our first little Bobo. I was passing the toupee and a great big chunk came flying out. It's the first time I've ever had that happen. And I found 2 of the 3 pieces. Glue them back on. And then I'll just sand afterwards and see. I might have to use a little bit of Bondo to fill in at the bottom here. But since we're painting the whole guitar, any Bondo or filler that you have to put in is not going to be seen. So it's bummer anyway. C'est la vie. Hey, we're back. Now, the neck is now round, radii and sanded down to 600 grit, and it's as smooth as silk. I had already cut down about 3/4 of the way before I put sanded the radii, and now I'm sanding down to the final depth, and I just have a little indicator here. I just stick it in and it tells me that it's at the right height. I just keep sawing on just a little bit, following the radius until this fits perfectly in there, and then I move on to the next one. I've already planted these first 4, but it's in the vise, so I'm going to cut all the rest of them, and then I'm going to support it all the way from underneath over on the bench, because hammering on here I'm going to start getting some bounce, so we shall do that. Okay, I'm taking a little break from the fret job. I had some bad luck. I had a chunk taken out of here, but I glued the pieces back in, and I do a rough, once it's cut out from the router, I've done a rough clean up with the belt sander there to get the final shape, overall shape. And then I take the orbital sander and clean it. So this is, I might have to put just a little bit of putty filler in there, and there's another spot up here. But here I just want to get rid of this, all these burn marks from the router. Okay, so now I'm going to flip them over and get this rounded edge right, and continue on around. Moving right along. Okay, so now all the frets are in and well seated. So now it's time to snip snip. Gotta cut them all off. These are, I won't say they're special, they're just the regular cutters, but I've filed a flat on the front so it fits right up against the fretboard, or as close as you can get, and then you just clip away. Oh, I got the cameras a little bit close here. Yeah, that's better. I don't want to give you the cold shoulder, but so you just go along. Cut. You go on both sides, but I think I'll turn it around after. All right. So I got all the frets are in, and I've filed down all this side. Now I'm working on this side just to get an idea. I just go right flat on it. Until you're flush with the wood. This isn't going to bite into the wood hardly at all. So then you just go your angle down. And you get at about a 30-degree angle. This is all going to be sanded afterwards because you get little divots here and there, but the whole thing is going to be sanded down a little bit. Start off flat, and then when you don't hear any metal, go down to your 30 degrees. Just make sure nothing is sticking up. Alright, I'll continue with that, and then we got to do the final trim after that. Okay, so we're all sanded down, or filed down, got our angle. So I'm just going to go on and polish all these and take out the little divots. There's a little one there. They come out right away. And then go on the angle and polish. And they come up nice and shiny. Very nice. A little divot here. Very good. I'll be putting the dots in when the next step. I forgot to mention that this is a 280 grit. This is fine, and this is very good. This is CRX, made in Switzerland. It's the best paper that I've ever found for all grades. I forgot to say also that once this is all finished for this grit, I have to flip it up, and I have to do each fret has to be filed because there's a sharp edge. This way it's okay, but the edge, they have to be just zip, zip, and then I'll do a final thing. Well, when I'm finished shaping the neck, then I'll go over all this with a 400 grit, 600 grit, get that right down real fine. Okay, this last step is very tedious, but after we're doing the 30-degree file, you have sharp edges on either side. So this is a small, very fine file, and it's sort of in a triangle shape, and there's no teeth on either side here. There's only teeth on the bottom, so this doesn't cut into the wood as much, but you have to be very careful. I've done these two, and you just go to the edge and just give it a round over the top, over to the next side, and that takes off that sharp edge. Like I say, this is a long, tedious job, so I shall bore you no further. Okay, I'm just going to show this last bit here. I've filed my edges down to about here, but you're always going to have little nicks from the file, even though there's no teeth on the edge there. And this is maple, it's hard, but it's so easy just to make a little dimple. So I take a 400 and I just make a little round on the wood. I go to the face of the fret and then just round it a little bit on that side, and then this side it puts a nice little round on the wood, and it takes care of those little divots. I got a little one there, so I'm going to give him just a little more. There. Now that's nice and smooth there. You're not going to catch anything on that. Okay, moving on. I want to move this camera out of the way. Okay, so frets are all done. Nice and smooth. And now I've marked out my dots. So what I do is I just do a countersink here so that the brad bit we'll drill that down so I don't miss the good spot. Now I think I'm gonna take these over to the drill press because I have to get a precise depth. So I'm gonna have to set up, if you put them down too low and it goes below the surface with the super glue, you ain't never gonna get it out. So I'll do that. Okay, change of plans. Because this isn't perfectly flat, I can't set that up with the stop on the drill press. So I'm doing them by hand, but I just set the depth, exact depth, and I just go down slowly and carefully until I get there. And if they're up just a hair, you can sand them down flush. That was right on. Just a hair. Very good. Okay. Now I'm just going to take some super glue. I'll get that set up. So I forgot to turn on the camera at the beginning, but I started now to shape the neck into its round. So I taped off the fretboard. I don't want to go up any higher than the fretboard. I want to keep that flat because I have to put my dots in. So basically I just start 45, bring it down, and then start rounding. I'm not going to do it now because I'm at the finishing point. I've got it rough shape, very rough shape. And now I'm going to go with the orbital sander with an 80 grit, and I'm going to refine the shaping with the 80 grit. You've got enough that you can do a reasonable amount in a reasonable amount of time, and you eliminate the risk of over gouging. I've done that so many times with a belt sander. Just a one wrong move and boom, you're way under. And you gotta start modifying everything. Anyway, here we go with this. Right, so I've pretty much got my shape. I did it with the belt sander and went over it with the orbital sander. And what I do is just basically go around. Sure there's no divots, nice and straight. Boom. I have to go and charge the battery now on the camera. Okay, looks like we're recording with my new chip in there. Now I've done these. So I'm going to change glasses here. And now these I cleaned with some sandpaper just to make sure there was no little burrs there. And this is the gel. And we just put one tiny drop like that. And these particular fret markers, they're dull on one side and they're shiny on the other. So I'm putting the shiny side up. Hopefully these will be able to polish. And I just tap this down a bit. Okay, he's in as far as he's going to go. He's up just a hair. So we'll have to sand him down a bit. There. This is fucking great stuff. Shiny side. This one's a little tight. I've got a little drop. A little drop. This stuff will stain the fretboard. I haven't put any stain on this yet. I'm not sure what I'm going to finish it with. Alright, that's them. I've ordered the side dots there, they're smaller. And waiting for those. Little side note, the ones that are sticking up just a little bit, I'm sanding them down, go with the grain and keep it as focused on the dot as you can. And the neck is sanded down to 600 grit, and this is a 320, otherwise it'd take me forever with a 600 grit to get that down. So we're going to have to go back. I did these two, so I'm going to go back and do a 400 and a 600, but always go with the grain. Otherwise you put scratches all the way across and you'll be sanding again for hours. And just try to keep it local, right on the dot. They sand fairly easily. There, that's nice and flush, flush, perfect. Okay. As you can see, I made a bobo on the neck. I'll explain it when I'm finished, so I have to remove the fretboard and make a new one. I'll explain later. I'm just using a heat gun and a stick. Working it across. That's how you remove a fretboard. Now, this is a real bummer. It teaches me the lesson that always concentrate on what you're doing. I was talking with a friend of mine as I was laying in the fret markers, and I only went up 3 instead of 4 on the single spacing dots, and I put my double dots here and then the single dot and single dot, and I just couldn't believe it. You have to always concentrate on what you're doing. So I can't live with that. So it was a relatively easy job to, I took off all the frets without damaging them. They came out fairly easily. They're stainless steel frets, so they didn't deform anything that I could see. So I'm going to make another neck exactly the same size and width, and I can hopefully use the same frets. If not, then I'll just have to redo a new fret job. Anyway, this seems to be okay. Just going to clean this up. Truss rod is still in place. Anyway, lessons learned. Okay, just a little insert. I'm making my new fretboard, and what I've done is this is all set up so it's nice and solid. I had to screw it in at the end into a block so that it can't slide, and this is up against here so it won't move, and you just use a block. This is a 9.5 radius, and what I do is I take my pencil and I mark all the way up and down, and the main thing is to have the center line. The center line has to be a nice dark pencil, but as you can see, as I'm going, I'm using just the edges. It's only biting on the edges right now and in a little bit. So you can see that my pencil lines are going away. I'm starting to get a radius. And once you, instead of using a new sheet of sandpaper every time, what I do is that once I start to see it sliding a little bit too easy, it's not biting as much anymore, then instead of getting a new sandpaper, I'll just move this over here. What I do is I just take this out, and it's only this edge that's being used, so I just take it out. I just move this over a half an inch and then refold this up, make a new crease here about a half an inch in, slide that over, make this up, make a new crease just so it sits there a little better, and then wrap around. Now the old spot is moved over. This is a new spot and a new spot, so you don't have to change the whole sandpaper every time. Okay. I'm going to make a template so that I can mill out all the meat in here. This is what makes it so light. So this will all be milled right down to the depth of, I believe it's 3/8. I'm going to double check that. This will go all the way down to 3/8 from the face. This centerpiece is going to be solid all the way up. I don't touch that at all. That will remain here. And then our cutout 5/8 of an inch down for our slope that's going to come up on the front. But in order to have the soundboard is my best explanation, to have the soundboard in the back reflect whatever sound it's supposed to reflect, you have to cut this section down 5/8. I don't know why they don't leave it the full height, because you're just milling out the face on an angle up. Anyway, everybody, the three that I watched, they all mill this out. So we shall. So now I'm gonna cut these out and then transfer it onto here, and then I'll be able to mill everything out. One little correction from the last take is that I showed this as no line here. Of course, this ridge has to go all the way around in order to glue on the back plate. So I didn't show that in the last take. So I added this in because this is all full height. Alrighty then. Okay, so as you can see, I started milling out the body. This goes down 1.25 inches, leaves me about 3/8 or 5/16, about the same thickness as here. So we start off with the Forstner bit. Just drill out the majority of it, and then afterwards we'll pass the router. So just get this guy lined up. About there. There we have it. Ready for the next side. Cutting out with the Forstner bits down to my 1¼ inch down. I got about 3/8 left. So now I'm going to put this on with with two-sided tape, and I'm going to pass the router and finish it. I'll do it in probably 3 or 4 stages, about 1/4 inch at a time, so you don't force the router too much. And I got my new neck is finished, and I got the logo, the nut cover, the logo, beautiful. I got that from Japan, stainless steel. I wasn't expecting something so nice. And I got my pickups. Pickups are going to go here. There's 2 more, 1, 2, 3. And Bigsby, and the bridge. So we're looking good. So I'm going to continue with the router. Okay, so now I forgot this. They milled out this section. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe just for less weight or something, but I'm gonna mill it out anyway. Oh, here I'm not set up. There, always let it stop before you pull it out, otherwise it'll grab an edge and do all kinds of stuff. Okay, so we'll continue with the last one. Now that's milled out, I'm going to go in with the best invention ever made for a tool, the oscillating tool and just clean up. Okay, I'll finish that up. Alrighty, so now I'm going to be milling out the depression that comes up like this, and I'm going to have curved edges down. So what I've done is made this little jig, I guess you call it. I measured up 4.5 inches, and my drop is 9/16 of an inch. But I want to come flush with this surface here. So I'm using the Forstner bits, and I made this jig. So I'm cutting, and it's taking a straight line down to that, from 0 down to 9/16. So I'll set that up. I've done the first 4 holes. You can see my line, and these is where it's going to curve in, so I don't go too close here. This is going to have to be just filed or chiseled out, however I decide to do it. So I'll set this up on the drill press. I'm back. Okay, so I got the first row done, and now I'm going to set this up so that I have a good 1/2 inch from the edge for the curve. And then on this side I want to take out about that much. I want to come just a little more this way. And whenever I'm working with Forstner bits, depth is your enemy, and you have to be very careful to not go any further. I could set up a stop for each horizontal row, but I'd rather do it by eye and just match the depth of these perfectly each time. So I overlap, the cutting blade overlaps into this circle a little bit, just so I can see, as you can see here, I can see when I get right down to exactly that level. And then when I do my 3rd row, it'll be just level with this line here, hopefully, if my calculations work. So turn off the press before I raise the blade, because sometimes it catches an edge and it throws the whole shooting match off and takes a big chunk out of somewhere. So I always leave it down, turn it off, and then raise it up, and the same thing in reverse. See, I'm just checking here now, and that is nice and level with the other ones, and you see it's getting shallower here, and the same thing in reverse. If I want to continue on, lower the blade into the hole. Into the hole first, then back up a little bit, turn it around, and then continue. So it lines up at the level now, so that's it. So I'll continue that. Now, that seemed to have worked pretty well. Everything's going right up and just at that line there. The rest of it, there should be fairly easy filing now that most of the meat is gone. But now I'm just going to take my oscillating tool and just clean up all the I've got this thing's starting to walk on me, so I might try to just get as much meat out of there as I can so that I can do my final sanding, filing, and then start sanding. It's pretty much to my liking. I used a half round file to get my edges here so that they're slightly concave. I've still got a little more work to do here, but this is all nice and flat now. And that's why it's important when you're doing the Forstner, when you're doing your depths there, that you get them all as close as possible, so you save a lot of time with this. I hardly had to do anything here, but now I have to do the sanding to get rid of the holes, and I do a final touch up, get where it meets the flat. Try to do as much as you can before you get down to the sanding, because that takes a while. Right, so this turned out pretty good. Did all my shaping and down to coarse sanding. There's a lot of sanding to get that right, but it looks fairly good. A little bit of Bondo in all the holes there. I mounted the Mr. Bigsby. He fits on there. That. So we're looking good. So now I'm going to mill out some holes here for the pickups. This is milled for the wire, the pickup wire. And we'll be good. Okay. Okay, I'm showing this at the end of the video, but this is the design that I got off the internet, and it was smaller than that. So I had to have it enlarged to the exact dimensions, and it fits perfectly. And now I've got my body, I showed this before I believe, carved out. I got my base plate and my pickups are all centered and ready to go. Drilled the holes through for the wires. And this is perfectly square to the neck. And I cut out my cutout for the controls, and that's underneath. So I've taken some 3/16 Lexan and tape both sides, and I got my curve. I set it straight edge, and then I put it on here and drew the exact curvature of my guitar, and that's going to fit on there nicely. So now I just have to clean up the edges of that, and then I'll be able to drill my holes for the pots. Okay, so now I'm going to clean that up. Now, the tricky part about this, cutting out this, is the more exact you do it on the scroll saw or the bandsaw, the less trouble you're going to have. Now, I had one spot here where I made just a little divot, but I can't just take that out. I have to follow the shape completely. So I just use number 80 grit for the first one, and just start from here and follow it and follow it. You can't just do the one spot or you're going to lose your curvature. Okay, that's almost gone. I just got about a 64th left there, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so he's done, and just to finish off, I just use a fine grit. Here's a 220, and after the 80 grit, I just do the edge all the way around. I've already done it, so, and I've inspected it very carefully, and there are no nicks, absolutely nothing. It's perfect. But I just break the edge at about a 45-degree angle. Just break the edge. Thusly, and you can, when you look at it, your camera won't pick it up, but you can see there's just a nice little white sort of defines it from doing the sanding on the edge at a 45. The important thing is with the bandsaw, as accurately as you can without wavering, and tape it both sides when you're cutting, and use a fine a fine blade on the bandsaw, and you will have no problems. It's perfect. And it fits. It even fits. I'm not sure if you can see that. So it's right on there, and there's just about a 1/16 recess all the way around, and this is flush with the recess. So when this is painted black, it'll show a defined line, the gold against the black, like that. And the next step is just going to sand it with the same 220 grit there. I already started, and just scratch it up. I'll go down to a 400 or even a 600. Just prepare that surface for the paint, because the paint won't stick as well if you don't take the shine off and give it some little grooves to stick in. I just go in a circular motion so you don't get and I'm painting both sides just so that it's good and solid, so we've got to prepare both sides. So I'll finish that. Okay, a new day. Now yesterday I want to put the back plate on here. I don't have any material, and I couldn't find anything very thin. I only want about, well, I'd like to keep it a little bit solid, an 1/8 at least, maybe 3/16. But what I do have is some red cherry. It's a hardwood, and I glued 2 pieces. Unfortunately, it's 3/4 of an inch thick, so I've got to plane it down. But the specifications for this are just over 2 inches for depth, and I find like this is about a good size for me. I don't want it too heavy, and I don't want it too thick. So I'm going to take some meat off of this and make my back plate a little thicker. So, and because there's a joint, once you get down to an 1/8, you're not going to have much holding these 2 pieces together. So that's why I want to go a little thicker, but in any case it's going to be glued all the way around and down the center here, so there's no danger of it splitting in half. Or I might even put a little bridge here the same height as this when I'm finished, just so that the center seam is supported. This center seam here is supported all the way and around the perimeter. Okay, I'm just going to take off probably about, I'll start with an 1/8. Probably just an 1/8. I'll see how thick it is. Once I start planing down my back plate, I'll have a better idea. Okay, this is very loud, so I'm going to turn it off. Now the moment of truth. Got the neck ready to go on. This has all been shaped to fit in there. It's all been pre-checked. All the angles are good. So all of my adjustments are roughly in the mid range. So I'm using PL Premium. This stuff sticks like shit to a baby blanket. So here we go. It's also hard to get out of the tube. And I'll put some on here as well. Oh, and then my neighbor came, so we'll stop this video. Well, got the back glued on. It's not the prettiest thing I ever done, but it's on. So we'll give that overnight, and then we'll do our milling. There. A new day, and I got up this morning and I routered this, and I forgot about the camera. Anyway, this is my setup for the router. It's got the roller on the top, so it's going to follow. You can see the back is on, glued on. So you just start, and it rotates this way, so you always have to feed in from this side. If you go the other way, it's just going to push it out of the way. So I just obviously I've already gone around, so I'm not going to keep going. Now we're going to go and do our sanding. Greetings, citizens of Earth. The masked raider is going to just clean this up with 100 grit, and then I'll work my way down through the grade. Etc. Okay, so I've gone all around with my 100 grit there. So that's, the bottom is perfectly married to the body. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to break the edges. I've already done the back here. Just give it a slight round. That's what it looks like, and I just use a motion wrapping around like this. A little harder in the valleys here. Just get that wraparound motion. Right around to the cut out. And I'll just do a little more. I'm going to turn it around so I can see better what I'm doing. Now we're getting down to the wire here. My edges are all nice. Now I'm just going to, I did 100 grit on the top with the orbital. But from here on down, I do it by hand. And this is a 180, and that works fine. Always going with the grain. God, I almost hate to put black paint over that. I really like the red cherry. Maybe I'll leave the back. Oh dear. I think I'm going to make one with the back and the front and just leave everything clear, natural. And anyway, we'll see. I kind of skipped a couple of steps here on the video. I did all my sanding down to 400 grit, and I decided I'm going to do a wood grain filler, which is I'm using the Aqua Coat wood grain filler, just with a tight grain. Wood like maple, you don't need it, but the back is red cherry, and it's a little more porous, but I decided to do the whole thing, both woods with the wood grain filler, because I saw there was a few little nicks and things, so this will act like a regular wood filler as well, if it's only a tiny little scratch or something that's not deep at all. So I just applied it. I've already applied it, but I just used my finger. You see the finger, and you just put it on and smooth it right out. Go across grain so that any vertical scratches will tend to retain the filler better. So that's going to set for about an hour. It's pretty warm here today. It's around 26 or 27 degrees Celsius, and it's already even after 15 minutes. But that's a fairly thin layer that I put on, and I use a Bondo squeegee. Just squeeze it down. And then I go after and clean all the edges and just try to have a uniform thin coat everywhere. And then in about an hour I can very lightly sand this with a 320 grit, and then I can put it under the microscope and just check everywhere to see if there's any dents or scratches that still show, and then we can proceed to the next level of, I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to use a primer or whether I can go right to a color. I got to do a little more studying on that. Anyway, that's bringing us up to date. Okay, voila! The sanding is all done, and I put coat of primer. I used this Zinsser cover stain primer bond coat, and it was recommended to me by a professional. I didn't see anything online about it, but it certainly looks nice. There's a couple of little spots here. I'm gonna go and get some fine putty filler, but you can see that's nothing. There's one spot here. I don't know what happened. I didn't see it before, but this is raised. This is the back plate. Just isn't sanded down because there's a ridge there. And here it's just a little ravine. It needs just a little bit of very fine putty, and over here on the back plate. So everything seems to be just the marriage of the back plate and the back. There's a little teeny ding there. I don't know if you can see that. And again, over here, just a little bit there, a little bit of putty there. Otherwise, I am pretty happy with that. It's going to take the black nice. Going to do a light sanding on there at a 400 grit. And after my putty is all dried, I'll just give it another quick light coat of primer, and that's it. Down here, these are the holes for the tailstock. I like that there. Okay, so I've done some DAP spackling on a few little spots here and there, or little teeny nicks and a little scratch. And now I'm using a pad, and this is just a sanding pad, ultra fine, because this primer, it's very, very soft, so it comes off right away. So I'm just going to sand out the whole thing. The primer leaves a bit of a rough finish, but you pass this and it's like a mirror. I've already done the neck. And you can see it comes off pretty easy, so you want to go real easy on the sanding, just enough to make sure you've got all the spackling leveled and the primer itself smooth, and just any little bumps or and then just lightly around the curvature of the edges, because that comes off 10 times faster than a flat surface. Just gently. See, that takes off a lot. And that is smooth as a baby's bun. Okay, I'm going to finish that. I might put a little more primer on the spots where I went through, where I put the spackling. We'll see. And again, I'm just with this pad, just very lightly keep it flat and don't put any pressure, just enough. Take off any little bumps, little lumps of paint, primer. Try to keep it flat. Just a little wrap around the edge. And I'll continue that.